Welcome to another edition of ChessChat, a program brought to you live from the Workers' Credit Union studios at Fitchburg Access Television. I am your host, George Merijanian, Program Director of the Wachusett Chess Club at Fitchburg State University. This club had been meeting in room C-159 every Wednesday night at the McKay Complex at Fitchburg State. But we have been in suspension since March 2020 because of the pandemic. And we hope to return to active over-the-board play at Fitchburg State once we get the green light from Fitchburg State University. But with me today for this episode of Chess Chat, we have once again our award-winning director, Darren Dame of Fitchburg, in the control room. He's assisted in the control room by a fellow resident and longtime Wachusett Chess Club member, Brian Bigelow. And across from me, for the first time in quite a while, is my trusty co-host, chess author, very active chess player, Dave Kuchar of Westminster. Hello, Dave.
Hi, George. Welcome back.
Good to be back, Dave.
It is good to be back.
Sitting opposite each other on this episode of Chess Chat. Well, Dave, we had a major international event that ended less than 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And what was this event that actually came to a conclusion?
So it's called the Candidates Tournament.
And
its purpose is to determine who gets to challenge the world champion.
Okay, and this is
later
actually
this year.
And this is actually sanctioned or organized by the World Chess Federation,
Right, FIDE.
which is known by its acronym FIDE.
Right.
And they held this actually in Russia, in
Yep.
Yekaterinburg, Russia, which happens to be the second largest city in Siberia.
Okay.
Yeah, about 1.5 million people in
Really,
Yekaterinburg.
I didn't realize it was that large.
No, huge. It's a big city.
Okay.
So they held this candidates tournament in Yekaterinburg. And how many players played in this candidates tournament?
So it would be 8.
8 players. Okay, so we're going to actually show our viewers who the participants were. Okay. We're going to eventually let our viewers know who won the event.
Yep. Yep.
But let's start actually with the person who finished last, eighth place.
All right.
And that would be, let's see, our director has, that's Wang Hao.
Yep.
Wang Hao. He's 31 years old, and he's from China. Mm-hmm. And what did Wang Hao do after this tournament ended?
He announced that he was retiring from.
Was that a surprise? That was a surprise.
That was a surprise, and he cited health issues. He didn't specify what health issues, but he said that was part of the reason he was retiring, and that probably partially explains his performance. He didn't perform well.
Right. He actually, out of 14 possible points, because this was a double round robin.
Right.
Each player played the other player twice, so that's for a total of 14 games. Yep. He only scored 5 points out of a possible 14. Yeah. So he finished last, eighth place. Yep. Okay, now who finished in 7th place? Let's see a photo of the player who finished in 7th place. And this is the youngest player in the tournament. Yep. And this is Russian Grandmaster Kirill Alexenko. He's 23 years old. He had 5.5 points. Yep. Okay. Again, he was making his debut.
He was a wild card.
Yes.
So the organizer gets to pick one wild card, and that was their choice. Was Alexenko.
Okay. Now let's move up actually who finished in 6th place. This is another Russian grandmaster, yep. Alexander Grishuk. Yep. Alexander Grishuk, who's 37, the oldest. He's the oldest player, 37 years old, and he scored 7 points out of a possible 14. And he's a very strong competitor.
Right. They're all super.
They're all strong. Yeah, exactly. Now, in 5th place, let's go to the 5th place finisher. And this is another Chinese grandmaster, Ding Liren, who's 28. And he also scored 7 points. But on tiebreak, he finished in 5th place based on tiebreak points. And another very super strong player, Ding Liren from China. Now, moving to our 4th place finisher in this candidates tournament, we have Fabiano Caruana. the strongest player in the United States,
Yep.
the highest rated player.
Number 2 in the world.
Number 2 in the world,
Yep.
behind Magnus Carlsen. And Fabiano Caruana, he's what, 20? He's 28 years old, and he had 7.5 points
Yep.
in this candidates tournament. And again, he not actually was the challenge.
He was the challenger against Magnus Carlsen last time.
In the previous World
Yep.
Championship match. Yes,
Right.
right. But he wasn't able to do it again this time.
Nope.
Yeah, no.
Nope.
Let's move into third place, and finishing in third place with also with 7.5 points. Also is Anish Giri. Now he was born in Russia, but he's taken up he's actually been playing for Netherlands. He's been in Netherlands, living in Netherlands. He plays under the Dutch flag,
Right.
and he finished with 7.5 points, as I said, and he again finished third place in this year's candidates tournament. Now, who came in as runner-up in second place? Who was our second place finisher? Who actually, as I think you told me, had a great start, in this tournament.
Right.
Let's see. This is a French grandmaster, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave.
Right.
Yeah, and he actually had 8 points. Now, what can you tell me about Maxime? You told me something about Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, as far as he had a great start.
We had a great start. So the tournament, the first half happened a year ago.
Yes.
And then had to be canceled because of COVID, because Russia said they were stopping all flights out of the country. So they just said
they halted. So they halted the tournament
at the halfway point.
Okay.
And at that point,
he was in the lead.
MVL, as he's known,
MVL, yes,
was tied with the person who eventually won.
Nepomniachtchi,
and based on tie breaks, he was actually ahead. So at the halfway point, he was actually
he was the leader.
He was the leader.
Okay. So now let's come actually to the person, the player, the grandmaster who won the tournament.
Yep.
And this is we're going to see a photo of Russian grandmaster Yan Nepomniachtchi. Yan Nepomniachtchi, he's 30 years old. He finished with 8.5 points to win this year's candidates tournament. And he will be challenging Magnus Carlsen in November this year, November 2021, November 24th. Is the projected starting date.
Okay.
Where is this being held? Do you know actually where this is being held?
It's in Dubai.
Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Yeah. So again, he will be the challenger, and we'll see. This should be an interesting match.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be part of actually some expo, some Dubai exposition that was supposed to be held last year, and they had to postpone that.
Right.
So they're postponing it until later this year.
Right.
And again, the World Chess Championship will be part of that expo in Dubai, United Arab Emirates.
There's a number of people who think he's probably the person that Magnus would be most challenged by, most afraid of.
Yes,
amongst the 8 people.
Now you told me, Dave, that actually Nepomniachtchi, when he plays Carlsen in November in Dubai, he will not be allowed to play under the Russian flag.
That's right.
Now, why is that?
That's because there was a doping scandal a year or two ago.
Yes.
Having to do with the Russian Sports Federation and the Olympics.
Yes.
And they determined that it wasn't just a localized thing, that it came from the highest levels of the government, that this was an organized doping scandal. So the original ruling, I think, was that for the next 4 years, like some athletes could compete in the Olympics, but they couldn't compete as under the Russian flag. But it also applied to, they said, any kind of world championship. So,
but it didn't apply to this tournament, though.
It didn't apply to this tournament because it wasn't considered a world championship.
It wasn't a world championship.
So now that what's going to be played in November is a world championship, they said he can't play under the Russian flag.
So the world, there's a world anti-doping agency that sanctioned Russia and said any of your players, any of your athletes or sportsmen, they will not be allowed to play.
And the original ruling, I think, was for the next 4 years, and then there was an appeal, and they said, okay, it's only going to be 2 years. So, but it still covers November.
Chess. Yeah, this World Championship chess match. Yeah. Well, again, you selected the game we're going to show our viewers. Our viewers are going to see a game that Nepomniachtchi, Grandmaster Nepomniachtchi, played against fellow Russian Grandmaster Kirill Alexenko from round 10. This was just played, just about a month ago.
Right.
And in this game, Nepomniachtchi had white, And he opened, we're going to see his first move, which is he played the pawns from c2 to c4. Now, have we seen this move?
That
opening
I don't
move?
know.
No, I don't. Maybe we have, but it's not as common as playing the pawn to e4 or d4.
Right. I'd say it's about 10% of the games open with
Yeah,
C4.
I would say. But does this have is there a name for an opening move like this?
Yeah, as soon as you push c4, it's considered to be in English.
Okay, so this is the characteristic move of the so-called English opening.
Right.
Okay.
And if
now,
d4 comes along later, then it can transpose into a queen's pawn opening, but
right.
if d4 doesn't get pushed, it's strictly considered an English opening.
Now, what are the possible replies to c4?
Just
the black
almost anything. So e5 is very common.
Yes.
c4 is common.
Symmetrical, being symmetrical.
Symmetrical, knight f6
right.
is common. You know, some play either.
Yes. So there's a variety
e6,
of plays.
It's wide open.
Okay. So what did actually Aleksenko play?
Aleksenko played knight f6.
Okay.
Developing the knight and sort of
right.
keeping his choices open as to what to do with the pawns.
Right. It also stops white from playing the pawn to e4 for one thing.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So in response to that, Nepomniachtchi played g3. He moved the pawn to g3. He could have played d4 if he wanted to.
Could have played d4,
Yep.
and typically the most common move is knight to c3.
That's also
at
a good
this
move.
point.
There you go.
Now, it should be pointed out that that Aleksenko, is probably prepared for either e4 or d4. He had probably done some preparation.
Yes.
And he probably didn't do any preparation for what happens if he plays c4.
Right, right, yeah.
And especially if he plays c4 followed by this, which is not that common.
Right.
So, as we're going to see, Aleksenko didn't fully understand the position.
But weren't there you told me there were allegations about the possibility that he might throw this game.
Right. There were allegations afterwards. People said he took a dive.
He took a dive. But
And, because it's a fellow Russian.
yes.
Nepomniachtchi was ahead by half a point before this. After this, it was a full point.
Right.
And there was only 4 rounds left, which meant everybody who was right behind him was really going to have to just
Yes.
give it everything with every game.
Yeah.
And, we could go on at length about this, but
Yes.
my gut feeling is...
But there's no evidence that
there's no evidence
that he took
other
a dive.
than the fact that they're both Russians, and, my guess is he didn't throw the game.
Right.
On the other hand, if sometime in the future it
Yes.
came out that he did throw it, that wouldn't surprise me either. But,
Okay.
but I
Right.
think we have to give him the benefit of the doubt and
Right.
say he just didn't
Yeah.
understand
Didn't understand.
the opening. So
Okay, so what did Aleksenko do in response?
e6,
E6, okay.
so
So,
he's preparing to push there.
right, opens up actually for the dark squared
Diagonal
bishop.
for the
diagonal for
bishop,
the bishop. Okay, so Nepomniachtchi continues on his third move, the fianchetto of the light squared bishop. Bishop
Right.
g2 is his move. We see it on our board here.
Yep.
Okay, good development.
And
Aleksenko, third move,
d5.
d5. That's what he plays. All right. So in response to d5, white, Nepomniachtchi plays, develops another piece.
Right.
Knight on g1 plays the f3. Knight f3 is his move. We see it on the board. We see it on the board there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's it almost looks like he's just giving up this pawn for nothing, but we'll see that's not the case.
Okay.
And I saw comments that, even at this point, Aleksenko took a few minutes on this move, which
Really?
showed that
Yes.
this wasn't automatic for him. He had to think.
Right.
Because you don't have to take the pawn. There's other things you can do here.
That's true. Right.
But he actually stopped to think for a while.
Yeah.
And he eventually grabbed the pawn.
D takes c4 was his
Yep.
move. Okay. So we see it on our board there. In response to this, Nepomniachtchi plays the queen to a4 check.
Yep.
And that check, we have to do something about that check on the king.
So he's checking the king and attacking the pawn at the same time. So he's going to get the pawn back.
Right. Now, but this gives black the opportunity, gives options here.
Lots of choices. He could block
What can you
with
do?
the pawn.
C6, you play C6.
Could even block with the bishop.
Attacking the queen.
the queen. He goes with the most common, which is knight bd7.
Okay, so that is now the most commonly played response to the queen a4 check. Well, so what Nepomniachtchi does after that move is play queen takes c4, the pawn on c4, which is his 5th move.
Yep.
So he's recovered his pawn, all right? And there's now Aleksenko's move coming up.
So now we should point out that the big issue with this opening is trying to get this bishop developed.
Yes, that looks like a problem bishop right now. I
And
mean,
we're going to see it's a problem. So so what he does, this is standard still. He plays a6
yeah.
with the intention of following up with that,
So that's the threat.
and then he can develop the bishop here.
Right. So by playing a6, there's a threat to follow with b5, attack the queen, and follow with bishop
Right.
b7.
Right, so if right now, if white were to just castle and this happened, black is actually fine.
Yeah.
Black has no problems.
So Nepomniachtchi realized that,
Yep.
and realized that the threat was to play the b5, attacking the queen.
Right.
He retreated the queen to c2.
Right.
So queen c2 was his 7th move here. So he can't now see he cannot play b5
Right, so now if he were to play b5,
that would be a mistake.
He could just,
Play
like
knight
plunk
e5,
the knight down
and look
here,
at this.
attacking this,
Right. And also
Yeah.
the threat of
and
sinking
probably
in
following up with that.
and
so,
winning the queen.
so he can't do it now.
No, so he can't play b5. That was a very smart move on
Right.
Nepomniachtchi's part to retreat the queen back to c2.
Right.
All right, so what did Aleksenko do instead?
So now he plays c5,
Okay.
and the interesting thing about this is that for most players, the point is that you're going to put the queen here,
Right.
and now you can
yes.
push because you can.
Now
the
you can
queen's
actually
supporting
that. Right. All right.
So that's the intent, but that's
Right.
not what he does. That's not how he follows it up.
Okay, so Nepomniachtchi just continues with his development
Yeah.
and plays on his 8th move, knight c3.
Yeah.
So he's got actually, he's ahead in development right now with 4 pieces developed here.
Yeah.
Okay, so Aleksenko's move on his 8th move, what does he do?
So now this is a key point in the game.
Yes.
I think he took about 8 minutes on this move.
Yep.
And like I said, the point usually of pushing this pawn is you're going to put the queen here so you can push this pawn and develop the bishop.
Yeah.
And he played bishop to e7.
Well, why did he do that when he could have actually put...
It's because apparently he didn't grasp that this was going to be such a problem. It's a normal developing move. He wants to castle. So
But a stronger move, as you pointed out,
Right.
was queen c7.
So this is a natural looking move, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I
We're
would,
getting ready to castle.
I could
yeah.
see playing it because I
Yeah.
want to castle.
Right, right.
And apparently,
So this must be new to him. He's probably never faced
right,
this
yeah.
this opening.
Well, given that he took
Yeah.
8 minutes to come up with that.
Really, 8 minutes. Took him 8 minutes. That's
And I guess Magnus Carlsen in his commentary looked
Yeah.
at that and said, he said unless he's got some kind of surprise up his sleeve,
Yeah.
he's already in trouble.
Right, exactly.
So,
All right. So he played bishop e7, and so Nepomniachtchi castles.
yeah,
That was actually his 9th move.
Yeah.
And what does Aleksenko do?
Aleksenko castles also.
So he castles. So at this point, Nepomniachtchi now plays d4, the pawn to
He's gonna
d4.
strike in the center.
Strike in the center. Okay. He finally, that's a move he actually could have played actually on the first move or even
Right,
the second
right.
move of the game, but he's held off until the 10th move.
Yeah.
All right, so what does Aleksenko do now in response?
C takes d4.
Okay, attacks the knight.
Yeah.
Of course, actually, Nepomniachtchi immediately recaptures. Knight takes the pawn on d4.
Right.
Okay, knight takes d4. That's his
I
move.
got to look at this. This bishop
Oh,
is just
yeah. So yeah, that pawn on b7 is staying there.
staying there,
Yeah,
and it's
not
getting in the way of this.
It's not moving at all. Right,
So-
exactly. Okay, so now what does Aleksenko do?
So now he plays queen to c7,
Which he could have done earlier.
which could have done earlier. Now it doesn't help it because
no,
you can't
it-
push.
it can't be
'cause
pushed.
That bishop is pinning it.
Black cannot push the, okay. All right, so Nepomniachtchi, what does he do on his 12th move? This rook has no future staying on f1. He moves to the open file,
Yeah.
rook d1. So it's always good to see, it's always good if you can put rooks on open files.
files, exactly.
That's where they belong,
Yep.
on open files like that. Okay, so what did Aleksenko do now in
So
response?
he matches him and puts his rook on d8.
Okay,
same
so he
file.
challenges him on the open file.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Nepomniachtchi continues with his development of pieces, brings the bishop on c1 to e3.
Yep.
Bishop e3, that's his move. We'll see it. It's there. We see it played on the board there. Okay. And now what does Aleksenko do?
Aleksenko plays knight b6.
Redeploys the knight to b6 on his 13th move. Okay.
So now it's offering perhaps the possibility of finally developing that
Yeah.
bishop. for
And
one
by the
thing.
way, this knight is pinned. There's nothing. No, I'm saying it's defended though.
Yeah.
The knight is adequately. But again, Nepomniachtchi continues with development, brings the rook on a1 to c1. Rook ac1 is his move.
So now he's got the
Look-
other rook on an open file.
And
Both rooks are on open files.
And has he not developed all his pieces?
Yes.
Now, what pieces has Black not developed?
So he's done nothing with these still.
Rook on a8 and the bishop on c8.
And he's
So,
got to worry about this queen being on the same
Yes, exactly.
file as the rook.
Right, yeah. So right now, there's a positional advantage that the white has here with this development.
Yeah, a
But-
lot of commentators were saying, at the grandmaster level, this is already positionally, strategically won for white.
Really,
You know,
strategically.
even though,
Yeah.
material's even.
Right,
and,
right.
A quick look, it looks like it's about the same. They say black's already
Okay.
deeply in trouble.
Now what does Alexenko do on his 14th move?
So, e5, attacking the knight, opening up perhaps diagonal.
But was there something better? Was this type of criticism? Was this move criticism?
I don't think so.
There's no criticism of doing this?
I don't think so.
Which opening up actually, yeah, it does open actually it looks like the bishop's now going to be able to come out.
Right.
Yep. All right, in response to e5, Nepomniachtchi plays the knight to f5. It's protected, of course, by the queen on
Right.
c2. And he's also threatening maybe eliminate that bishop maybe on e7.
Right, and there's
Yeah.
even possibilities
Or even
of
taking
grabbing
on
this
yes.
pawn and opening.
Opening up,
the
yes,
king.
yes, right. Weakening that castle position. So what did Alexenko
So
do in
Alexenko
response?
finally, he trades off that problem bishop.
All right, and of course, White's response is automatic.
Yep.
He has to take back with the queen. Queen takes f5. Okay, so the queen is here. And
So
yep,
black got rid of his problem bishop, but the position is so nice for white.
Right.
He's got both rooks on the open file.
yes, yes, yes.
If this knight moves, this queen's going to be under attack.
All right, okay.
So
All right, so it is now Black's move. Yeah, so 16th move, Alexenko does what?
knight c4
What's the threat?
is attacking this bishop and this pawn.
So he's got two threats.
Yep.
Threatening if he takes the bishop, he's going to be doubling the pawns on the e file.
Right.
But he also is threatening to win a pawn outright
Right.
by taking the pawn on b2. Now, in response to that knight c4, what Nepomniachtchi realizes, okay, of the two threats, I do not want to lose this bishop and have my pawns doubled. So he brings the bishop to g5.
Yep.
Okay, g5 is his response. And now, what does Alexenko do? Oh,
Trades off on the d file.
rook takes
d1.
d1. Okay. Now, there are two ways to recapture. He could either take actually with the rook, it's a possibility, but no. He says, no, I want to stay on this file,
Right.
maintaining the pressure on the file. So he recaptures with the knight. Knight takes d1.
And now this knight is
Yes,
pinned.
now is able to protect this pawn.
That
Yes.
knight's protecting that, but
Yeah.
this is pinned.
Yeah.
So
Yes, right. And he's also, isn't there a
He's
threat of
threatening to
threatening
push
b3, which
and
would
winning
win the
it.
piece?
Right.
All right, so it's Alexenko's move. What does he do? What does he do here?
18th move.
18th.
Rook d8.
Right, rook d8.
So the point is, if he does take the knight, he can take his knight with check.
Right.
So it's
Now, but he had a choice here. Put the rook back on
Yeah.
c8. No, right there, yeah. Could he have actually, in response to that, done a little tactical thing? Could he have played the queen to d8?
yes, a lot of people suggested that he needed to do this. He needed to get the queen off of this file.
Because he's setting up a little thing. If the queen goes to d8, and we can show our viewers this, if the rook now would say, well, now I can win the knight. But what that would do, if the rook were to take the knight on c4,
then the queen
this allows the
takes the
queen come down,
check.
knight check,
Right.
and he has to block with the bishop.
Right.
And this bishop no longer is going to be nullified. It's
Right.
the passive.
Yep.
So he doesn't want that.
Yeah.
So instead, we've got this here. Okay.
But, it's pointed out that
So, all right.
this rook hasn't moved yet. Your natural instinct is, I need to get this rook
Get
in
the
the
rook.
game.
The last piece to develop
Right.
for black, yeah. So he plays rook d8. Okay, now what does Nepomniachtchi do? He plays the bishop, and maybe you can do it.
Yep.
Yeah, play bishop takes it.
Takes
In fact,
f6.
I think I'll have you start playing both sides. Okay, so after bishop takes f6, what Alexander takes back with the
Takes back
bishop.
with the bishop.
Bishop on his 19th move.
Yep.
Okay, Now, Nepomniachtchi now plays a very strong move. He plays bishop e4.
Bishop e4.
Okay.
So now
What is he threatening?
Threatening this pawn with check.
Right, exactly. And he cannot block that attack on the pawn
Right.
with g6.
That's the key thing is usually you would just do this, but
You would
it
lose the
loses
bishop. He'd lose the bishop on
So,
f6.
This shows what difficulties black
All right,
is in.
so he has to seek. So black has to look for counterplay.
Yep.
He realizes he cannot stop the attack on h7. So what does he play?
Queen a5.
Okay, we're going to see it right now. There it is. Queen a5 is played by Aleksenko.
The threat is he's going to come down here, check.
Ooh,
with
and
a double attack.
yes,
on
and
the
win,
knight,
and yes,
and win the knight.
yeah. So what Nepomniachtchi does, he plays the knight to c3 on his 21st move, which now blocks, stops the attack on e1
Yep.
with a check. Okay, Aleksenko's move. What does he do? It's his 21st move. He realizes he cannot. He's trying to make a run for it.
Right.
Is he not?
Trying to get the king away from what's coming.
Can he escape? Is this king to f8?
Well, we'll see. We'll
All right,
see.
he plays the king a. But now Nepomniachtchi plays the knight to d5. And look at this.
Right, so he's covering the escape square. So now the threat is checkmate two. Take here,
and then
here,
yes.
and it's mate.
So there's a threat of actually mating 2 moves here.
Yep.
If he's allowed to continue. So this is a very strong move, knight d5.
Yes.
So what does Aleksenko do in response to this?
Well, his knight is hanging here now.
Oh, yes.
So he guards it with b5.
All right, so b5, 22nd move. All right. So in response, Nepomniachtchi now takes the pawn on h7. Queen h7. Now, isn't he threatening him mate in 1 move?
He's threatening mate in 1 move.
Queen h8 is mate. Checkmate.
So pretty much he's forced. He takes the knight to free up this, so this square is no longer controlled.
This is giving up what we call the exchange.
The exchange,
When
right.
you give up a rook for a minor piece, that's giving up the exchange.
Right.
He had to do it.
Yep.
The only way to stop the mate. Okay, and of course, Nepomniachtchi takes
back.
bishop takes d5, the rook, okay?
Yeah.
All right. So now Aleksenko's move, is it not? A 24th move, he comes down.
Queen to d2, attacking the rook and the bishop.
2 pieces attacked.
Yep.
So Nepomniachtchi realizes, wait a minute, I got 2 pieces attacked. Then you know what he has to do?
Give the exchange back.
He has to, give the exchange back. Rook takes c4. We'll see it. We see it now on the board. Okay.
And b takes c4.
It was forced.
Yeah.
Okay. Now here comes a move which I consider,
Yeah.
to me, of all the moves played in this game, this is the best move. I mean, if this play,
this is nice.
this is a nice move. He played e4. Now, why did he play e4? Because it cements that bishop at d5. Okay.
Have to move it along.
And move it along. Okay.
And stops this pawn from advancing. This bishop is now stuck here.
So what did Aleksenko do?
He grabs the pawn on b2.
Okay. And now Nepomniachtchi plays queen h8. We're going to look at the board. Check, forcing the black's next move, king e7,
King
right?
e7. Yeah.
Okay, that's his move. And now he plays queen c8. Let's see it on the board here. Queen moves over. Ooh, and he's threatening the check on c7.
Yep.
Queen c7 would actually lead to a mate.
Yep.
So what does he do?
Queen
he plays
d6.
Let's see it. Queen
Just
comes back,
cover the square. Yep.
protects that c7 square, stops the check.
Yeah.
And now what does white do?
Queen takes c4.
Ooh, he wins the pawn. And he's threatening now another pawn on f7 for one thing.
Yep.
Okay. So now what happens? We have actually black playing what?
He tries to get him to trade queens.
And that would be a big mistake if
Right.
Nepomniachtchi would exchange queens, because it would get down to an opposite
Colored bishop ending, which is probably going to be a draw.
Right, okay. So instead he plays what? He
Queen
plays
c7.
Queen c7, which is actually the 30th move.
Yep.
And now he blocked. Didn't Aleksenko come with a block?
Queen d7.
And now after white's next move, Nepomniachtchi played what? What did he play? Let's see this.
Queen c5.
Queen c5, check. And he can't block with if he blocks with the queen again,
Right.
the queen would come down to a7 check.
Check. Win another pawn.
He's going to win another pawn. So again, this is a game that was a great game from the candidates tournament.
Yep.
Jan Nepomniachtchi will be challenging Magnus Carlsen in November in Dubai, United Emirates, by winning this year's FIDE candidates tournament. and we wish him well. We expect a very strong match. See you next time on Chess Chat.